everybody, and welcome to the Weekend Rants. I'm your host, Cole Marcus Cash. These are my bottom five for the week of January 18th through 22nd, 2021. Things that have pissed me off the most between AEW and the WWE. At number 5 this week, the Dusty Crap Tag Team Classic. Where do we start with this, right? First of all, you very clearly do not have 16 teams in NXT at the moment because a lot of these are not tag teams. Kurt Stallion and August Gray, they've been in NXT for about 45 seconds, so obviously they're not a tag team as of yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Kurt Stallion's over on 205, so he's barely even on NXT in the first place. So where is that tag team coming from? Bad enough that we have to watch a match between them versus Killian Dane and Drake Maverick because we just can't stop butchering the possibilities we have with Killian Dane. We have to continue trotting him out there with Drake Maverick and the silliness of the dancing and the music we're trying to get over, and nobody's buying this as a legitimate threat to any other tag team, but we're just going to keep it going for some reason. And we're going to get them an easy win because we got these two neophytes over here in Stallion and Gray. This is terrible. This doesn't need to exist. But that's not even the only instance of this in this tournament. We have Jake Atlas and Isaiah Swerve Scott that I'm a fan of neither, but they're competing against each other. They have a rivalry going against each other, and their tag team partners also against MSK. You have Kushida and Leon Ruff, who's not a tag team either. Kushida just came to save Leon Ruff's ass one time because Leon Ruff is all of 46 pounds. And they're going up against The Way, a fairly new stable that includes your mid-tier champion, by the way. The Way's Johnny Gargano and Austin Theory, and then they win a match against Gargano and Theory on this episode. What are we doing, people? We have a brand new stable. We have a champion in that stable. They've got promise. They're one of the most over things, one of the only over things on your show right now, and you have them lose to Kushida and Leon Ruff. Are you kidding me? And then you also have what was going to be Tony Nese and Arya Daivari, who's not a tag team either, as far as I remember. Like, they hung out a little bit back when Enzo was around, but, I don't remember them still being a tag team lately. And they were going to face the Adonis and whoever it is whose name is Troy, but they've got taken out because Killian Cross assaulted is the best way to put that, the Adonis during their match. So they're getting replaced with the people that were in the main event on this show, Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher. Now, do they make sense together? Sure. Are they cut from the same cloth? You can say that. They're rather rough around the edges, the two of them. Not put on the front of any postcards, either one of them. But they're in a rivalry also. In fact, if I recall it, aren't they 1-1 in this rivalry? Am I forgetting a third match here? There's a blow-off match to be had before we have this mutual respect thing going where now they're a tag team. And I shudder to think that they're going to come pretty close to winning the whole thing if they don't win the whole thing because of their singles rivalry and because WWE as a whole, so NXT by extension now because they're on TV, so now they're not developmental, they're WWE, and Vince McMahon's probably screwing with it. We're going to use tag teams and tag team tournaments or championships or tag team storylines to further singles feuds and narratives. Yuck to all of this. Doesn't help, by the way, that we also have a women's Dusty Cup at the moment as well. Not quite sure why that is because we most certainly don't have enough women for that. There's supposed to be 8 women's tag teams, but they only have 4 in the first place. Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae from the Way, I would say, would have an easy win over Gigi Dolan and Cora Jade, who are both debuting with the company. But considering what they just did to Gargano and Theory, who knows how they're going to drop the ball with this. Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon, yuck to the both of them, but they're going up against Marina Shafir and Zoe Stark, latter of which making her debut. Marina Shafir, who doesn't even have her normal tag team partner at the moment. So obvious which way that's going to go. No need for that match either. Aaliyah and Jessie Kamea are going to go up against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. How obvious is that? Raquel Gonzalez could win that match alone. Plus, you add Dakota Kai, and you've got the fact that they have not cared whatsoever about the Robert Stone brand since the Rhea Ripley thing, really. I mean, they tried to do something with Mercedes Martinez, but then they yanked her to Raw, and then when they brought her back, she's not with them again. So where did any of that go? They fell off the face of the earth, all of them. And then you had the match that took place this week for that tournament. You had Mercedes Martinez and Toni Storm, 2 singles stars who should be competing and arguably could be altogether the NXT Women's Champion, against Casey Catanzaro and Kaden Carter, who, like, neither of them are anything to write home about. I kind of find their tandem worse somehow. I'm not quite sure what bothers me about them as a team. Like, I know I'm indifferent about them individually, but as a team, I think it's the hokiness of the fact that they got paired together strictly because their names sound similar. Like, that's really all it is. It's the girl whose name is KC and then the girl whose initials are KC, and someone had a belly chuckle and they said put them together. At the least they're matching in gear, so I guess that's a thing. I guess I am preferable to the fact that Casey Catanzaro and Kaden Carter picked up the win this week, because Mercedes Martinez and Toni Storm are not a team and theoretically should not be in this tournament together in the first place anyway. And we got to further narrative with Io Shirai, who interfered. So I guess that's a win. But really, like, I understand the thought behind it. I would even say it could have been done much sooner. But if you're going to do a women's Dusty Cup in WWE at all, it needs to be an open invitation to the other brands as well. You don't have enough people in NXT for this in terms of the women. And just the makeshift shoddy tag teaming thing is just so bad always anyway. So I guess they, grateful that they picked up the win here, which is pretty much why it gets to number 5. Aside from the main event between Thatcher and Ciampa being amazing in the fight pit. Casey Catanzaro hits, I'm going to call it a Phoenix Splat. It looked like a Phoenix Splash, except she was facing the other way, and she somehow landed on her heels and the back of her head at the same time instead of her opponent via her back. So got some works to kink out. Looks pretty cool. I'll give her that. It was indeed one of the better NXTs, in my opinion, in a long time, because I've considered NXT to be rather dreadful outside of the last 20 to 30 minutes every week. But considering what's going on the other show, this was quite a breath of fresh air. And the only real negative thing that can say this is the booking. I don't want to say haphazard or last minutes or anything, but just not even not logical. It just doesn't make sense. Very thrown together booking of everything, I think, is its only downfall. So it's going to be number 5 this week. At number 4, he's The Miz, and he deserves better than this. Ugh. At WWE, always bringing back the superstars of yesteryear. 50-year-old Goldberg, 70-year-old Ric Flair is on television. Mark Henry's on TV. Big Show's always on TV. And then we have the parodies, right? Where they bring smaller sized versions of certain superstars, or in this case, an older version of Goldberg, right? That, like, you could have just had Goldberg if you want to know Goldberg, but you got an older Goldberg in Gilbert back out there at 71 years old, I want to say. And then you had some actor from some TV shows. Apparently he's known. I've never seen him. He looks like a fat mess, though. No disrespect if you're overweight listening to this, but this guy was a mess. And he's supposed to be Drew McIntyre, who, Drew McIntyre looks like $1,000,000. Obviously, we're not expecting a real Drew McIntyre here. He's still quarantined. I wish it'd be a little bit longer so we can avoid this Goldberg match altogether. But you got this actor with his wig falling off and his body just not cared for it in his entire life. And 71-year-old Gilbert, and they're in the ring, and they're in the middle of Miz TV with The Miz, who, I'm in the vast minority here when I say fortunately has his Money in the Bank briefcase back, because at least there is something to look out for. Like, I don't know who expects Drew McIntyre and Bill Goldberg to be any good whatsoever. Is it going to be two hogs fighting? Sure, for, 270 seconds? Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a drag 'em out fight until, Goldberg runs out of gas. At least you can keep teasing Miz cash-ins, or hopefully get an actual Miz cash-in, and hopefully Miz can win the belt again, because he's a lot more entertaining, at least promo-wise and speaking-wise, than Drew McIntyre has been with either of his times with the title. Significantly more so than Goldberg. And it also, and more importantly, opens up the door for other possible people to win that title. Like everybody who wants a push for, I don't know, Ali, or they want to push for Bobby Lashley to leave the United States title picture and go after the world title, whomever, right? People that are not overly jacked up and built and therefore not treated like megastars can realistically beat a Miz for that WWE title instead of Drew McIntyre, who looks like $1,000,000 that would be taking an astronomical L. Because at this point, Drew McIntyre should only be losing that belt to Keith Lee or Sheamus or or maybe AJ Styles, but someone of a larger stature or extraordinary skill, right? It's a very short list. The Miz opens up a lot more doors, especially considering we're about to have a Royal Rumble and a Royal Rumble winner who should be someone that doesn't normally get those opportunities. So, can't wait for this to be over. Hopefully Goldberg doesn't win that title. Hopefully it's not a Goldberg winning the title off of a failed Miz cash-in also, because that'd just be the worst of both worlds. Hey, a shout out to myself there. He is a diamond for that company for the past 10 plus years. He doesn't deserve to be such a comedy goof all the time, especially playing third fiddle here in a story, including someone who's never around and shouldn't have been around for the past 15 years anyway. It's rough. Miz is awesome. Deal with it. He does deserve better than this. At number 3, RK. Oh, stop it. Ugh. Why are we a television show? Why do we insist on being bad TV? I don't understand. The pyromania thing is ridiculous to begin with. You were gonna light a match and light a woman on fire, said woman being Alexa Bliss. Like, nobody really believed or expected that in the first place. I would hope, right? But whatever, that was your gimmick and that's what you were running with, and cool, whatever, no problem. Then, obviously, he didn't burn her, but he wanted to. But he didn't burn her because she wanted to be burned, because that makes sense. So the following week, Alexa Bliss shows up with a fireball and quote unquote burns Randy Orton, who's gripping at his face that looks perfectly fine as he's gripping at his face to close out last week's show. So this week's show, he's so scarred and burnt and disfigured. And my biggest problem with this, and what almost made this number one on this list this week, if not for a couple other things. My biggest gripe with this is he cuts an opening promo to start the show. So not a sent-in tape that Samoa Joe, goes, oh, we got this tape from Randy Orton, he had this to say, or anything like that. We're going to lead the show open with it. And it's him standing somewhere in the dark with the plainest, most generic ace bandage wrestling face mask that you can possibly find, where you can see he just has, I want to say that's bronzer, right? I want to say he went to, insert pharmacy of your local area and went to the makeup section and got some bronzer and put on his face, and then with the lighting it looked kind of in brown. It was cheesy, mostly because in said promo, he's talking about how he can feel his flesh melting. Okay? Not just a lot of pain, not just a blinding light, not just it felt really hot, not just, discomfort or what have you, or everything's sore, or any of that, right? Things you can get away with. He used the phrase that he felt his flesh melting, as in disintegrating, as in will no longer be there. But he's standing there, close up view on a camera that shows his nose is still there and perfectly fine. His lips are still there and perfectly fine, and his eyebrows are still there and not burnt off. He looked exactly the same as he always did, except he had cheap makeup on underneath an even cheaper mask. This is bad. You can see him. You know what he looks like. If you can't pull off a visual for your script, you change your script to get closer to matching the visual. Jesus, it's not that hard. You can't go so over the top on your words when the image you're presenting is nowhere near it at all. I tried to make this argument on Twitter, and people on Twitter were like, well, he's obviously not gonna, burn himself in real life for its story. It's fake and da-da-da. And that's my point. That proves my point. It's obviously a story. It's obviously fake. And your visual further emphasizes how cheesy, ridiculously stupid it is in the first place. Have him, if he got burned in the face, A, you should be taking him out the Royal Rumble to begin with. B, if he is going to stay in a Rumble, maybe he shouldn't be seen until the Rumble, at the very least. But C, and most importantly, he doesn't show up to open the show the very next week looking perfectly fine. You could have at least done the Aleister Black thing where you just see a dark room and hear his voice and you don't see his face whatsoever. Maybe he's got his back turned and his hood up. And all you see is the back of Orton's hood, but you know it's Orton because you hear his voice and he's got whatever snake viper thing on the back of his jacket. Just some common sense, and this would go so much further and be so much more acceptable as their version of quote-unquote more adult content that the USA Network wants, because it's going all the way the other way. Instead of getting more adult content, this feels like I'm getting more Cartoon Network. This is ridiculous. At number 2, Smacked Down to the old NXT. And by that I mean the old NXT formats, like when NXT first debuted, when it first came on television. What was that, the Sci-Fi Network, where it was a game show or reality show, or I don't know what kind of show, a show that nobody wanted to watch or should not have been watching. It was everything that was not wrestling whatsoever. We had that this week on SmackDown. more egregious is the fact that not only did we have this in 2021, not only did we have this on SmackDown of 2021, but it was a segment between Bayley, you know, only most recently your longest reigning SmackDown Women's Champion of all time. That's all. One of the wrestling four horsewomen, someone who led the charge, or one of the leaders of the charge of the women's revolution within WWE, against Bianca Belair, who in one body encapsulates everything that women's revolution is: personality, charisma, a look, wrestling ability. She's a total package. And she makes her own gear, so she's got to save you a few bucks also, right? She is the definition of can't miss with this women's division at this point. She's highest, or at least should be highest, out of all three brands in terms of, you know, the next woman to be a major star for the company. Never mind the fact that she's a woman of color also, right? Which, unfortunately, A, means she might not ever get that chance because it's WWE, but B, should be another selling point for WWE to push her to the stars. Make her a star. It wouldn't be for hokey reasons like you did with Jinder Mahal. This is someone with actual talent. It's not that hard to just give her a push. And when we started a feud of Bianca Belair and Bayley, even though it felt kind of forced in the beginning, you can sit back and go, okay, well, this is exciting. This is the former women's champion in a feud with someone that most of us should be feeling this way. Can't wait to see as the next women's champion. And we have here an ultimate athlete competition thing from NXT in whatever the hell year NXT first started, before NXT had a ring of its own. We had an obstacle course where you had to flip a tire that was supposed to be, 400 pounds, except when you flipped it, it bounced up and down so easily that it looked like it was 40 pounds. You had to hop over whatever those things are called when you run the relay races and you hop over them. I don't know what they're called. Hurdles? And then there's a wall, but Bayley's a heel, so she's not going to climb over the wall. She's going to run around the walls, but not be penalized. Not be disqualified and not have her time counted in the first place, but also not be penalized where they add time to her count overall because she cheated, which isn't that normally how that goes? Like, if you don't do something, you either don't place at all or you get penalty time added to your time allotment, but not for her. And then she carries Chad Gable, which I appreciate Alpha Academy getting on television because Chad Gable's a star, or should be. But it makes Chad Gable look kind of bad. Like, yeah, at least Bayley was selling it and struggling to carry Chad Gable on her shoulders as she walked however many steps. But she completed it. Even if she collapsed right after, she still completed it. So it doesn't say too much for Chad Gable there. And then for, I don't know what reason whatsoever, we had a basketball and a basketball hoop where you had to dunk to finish this challenge, because basketball has anything whatsoever to do with wrestling or with sports entertainment even. It doesn't even have anything to do with sports entertainment. There's no basketball characters in WWE history. There's people who dress up like basketball players. Angelo Dawkins loves basketball shorts. You can argue that Kevin Owens wrestles in basketball shorts. Linda Miles is a former basketball athlete before she came to WWE, but they never made a gimmick out of it. What's the point of having a basketball and a basketball hoop in this athletic challenge thing that's not supposed to be here in the first place? All of this was horrible. The only redeeming part is that Bayley's such a heel that after she runs her obstacle course first, she goes and makes every part of the obstacle course harder for Bianca. And Bianca looks good because she still beats that time with like 17 seconds left to go, despite the increased challenges, right? So sure, Bianca looked good, but you know how Bianca looks good? Kicking Bayley's ass in the ring. And Bayley cheats to win, or she runs out and walks off and gets counted out, or, you know, whatever, or she just gets herself disqualified. You know, whatever the case might be. You can do anything else. A backstage brawl. But you can do anything else that's at least fighting, A, somewhat violent, B, but minimally not stupid, not ridiculous, not a waste of my time, not something that has nothing to do with the rest of your program whatsoever. Bayley has never been better than her heel run that she's been doing with this version of her character. And Bianca Belair has been money since she's been on Vince McMahon television. Like from the second she's been on Vince McMahon television. You can only stand in your own way here with this. And surprisingly, they're standing in their own way here with this. Just stop being overly gimmicky and overthinking this. You got two good athletes with a hell of a lot of charisma. The talk show thing was a little weird, but it actually hit and it worked. But then it led to this, and this was a clunker. This is bad. But now that we're at 2 weeks in a row of skits, essentially, can we get them in the ring? I know we're trying to hold off to the Royal Rumble. You can do pull apart brawls or something. Not mixed tag matches, but awkward bedfellow tag matches or whatever, where you can get two different single storylines put together in a feud. Like, do that. Like Bianca and Sasha against Carmella and Bayley. I know we did that, but you can just do different versions of that or something. Fatal 4-way. I don't know. But just do something physical with these two good athletes that is not to be laughed at. I'm not laughing with either one of them. I'm not laughing at one in particular. I'm laughing at how bad all of this is altogether. And that is the last thing that should be happening, especially with two people that are not worthless. There's a lot of worthless on these three rosters. These two ladies are not on that list. Let's do better by them. But number one on the list here, especially in terms of doing better, AEW Dynamite, who was not on my list at any point last week. But this entire show is on the list this week. All of AEW Dynamite is the number one biggest gripe, most egregious thing on weekly cable televised wrestling between WWE and AEW. I don't know if New Japan has an American deal or NWA or ROH or insert company name here. I don't watch those places. But AEW Dynamite was terrible. It might be the worst episode they've ever done, in my opinion. I don't have the best memories. So I can't think back of 2 years worth of Dynamites, but it might be the worst one. If it's not the worst one, it's definitely one of the worst three. Like, it gets a medal, right? It gets gold, silver, or bronze for worst ever Dynamite episodes. And like from the very beginning, we start off with -1. Brody Lee Jr. coming out, and we're gonna celebrate his birthday on cable television TNT Network's AEW Dynamite, by the way, not on Dark on YouTube, right? This whole other, for whatever reason, 2.5 hour show that you have for nonsense and tryouts and time fillers and things you want to get over and things you just want to put on camera anyway and insert reasons A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. You're starting your cable television show with this child that wants to celebrate his birthday. I get that his father died, and I feel sorry, so sorry for him that it happened. It's not a great feeling. I know firsthand that's not a great feeling. And I get that Tony Khan and everybody are such great people that they want to do right by this kid. That's fantastic. I love everybody over there for that. That's amazing. It's also been 4 weeks in a row now that we have this pseudo leader of -1, Brody Lee Jr., with the Dark Order just wasting time on television and making everything into a joke. Like, maybe that's his gift, that he wanted to do something with wrestlers. Great. You can run a camera. Put it on Dark. Put it on Dark. It doesn't need to be on Dynamite, okay? Even if he specifically said, I want for my birthday on Dynamite, listen, kid, all right? I'm willing to do all of this for you. I still have this show to run, right? But instead, we cave. We have this segment And then we have a match of Dark Order, who are overly face now. Like, I get they're going to be face, but like overly face. Like cheesy, corny, goofy face. And Hangman Adam Page also. Versus TH2's Jack Evans, Angelico, and Chaos Project, Serpentico, and Dr. Luther. Listen, where do we begin with what's wrong here? First off, Dr. Luther is one of the people that shouldn't have a contract anywhere. He's not good at anything. He's not good in the ring. He looks like a mess. He's slow. He's sloppy. He's awkward. He can't talk. And he's got this weird yelp thing that he does also in his match all the time. It's grating to the ears and it's grating to the eyes. And I wish I didn't know he got a job because of Chris Jericho. Like, I wish I couldn't put that on Chris Jericho because he's so bad. And Serpentico, this generic luchador, shouts out to Sammy, this generic luchador that you have, that he's got some talent. He can fly around. He doesn't really have much of a gimmick, right? I get that you want to do things with him, and cool, right? I don't quite think he's quite ready for that yet, but you want to do things with him. But you're doing a incredible disservice to the Serpentico character, putting him with Dr. Luther. And in number 2, the way everything was structured, we got them and Dr. Luther with a microphone talking about how he hates kids and whatever other stupidness. But we don't get the best part of this tandem, which is the theme music of THQ, where Angelico comes out and does his dancing, which is absolutely ridiculous. Yes, but one of those I can't help but laugh at it and I can't look away types of laughs. Not laugh at it like Dr. Luther, where I go, oh my god, I can't believe I'm such and such an age and I'm still watching wrestling. That's an incredible miss right there, because it's a wonderful sight to see. You have them in this match. This is not a match for Dynamite in the first place. It's an excuse really to get to after the match, besides Dr. Luther getting cake in his face because, the beginning of the show wasn't enough. We got to come back to it. But we want to get to Hangman Adam Page's decision of whether or not he's going to join the Dark Order after a wonderful serenading by John Silver, who expected Hangman to say yes, obviously, because they had quite a celebration where they expected that Hangman would say yes and join. Hangman said no, which surprised me a little bit and disappointed. I want Hangman Adam Page as the new leader of Dark Order. I want Anna Jay actually as the leader, but I know that's not going to happen. So I'd like for Hangman Adam Page to take over that role. I'd like for the sales pitch to be, that they would appreciate him. They would treat him as number one, be the leader of the group, and everybody would have him on the pedestal because, instead of Hangman's reason for not joining, where Hangman did the group thing and it didn't work out, the argument could be made that, well, you were kind of number 4 out of 4 in that group. You were kind of like the least important guy to anyone in that group. And so you were overlooked and you were undervalued. And maybe that's why it didn't work out, and it led to, the decisions that have been made in your current pastime of choice. So I'm hoping it's not over with that, and they do end up rounding him into the group. But those 2.5-3 minutes of trying to get Adam Page's decision and then getting the no and then his walk off while everybody's stunned and bewildered that he said no, that was the only good part of this whole opening segment. You double down on this now. This might be a bit out of order, but you have, speaking of entrance music missed out on, you have Hardy Party come out for their trios match, which means we're going to come out to Matt Hardy's music, despite the fact that we're trying to push Private Party and they have one of the best theme songs in all of AEW. But they come out for a trios match against Top Flight and Matt Sydal, who, on paper, that's a great trio. That fits. They don't do that a lot, where they make something that makes sense. Top Flight and Matt Sydal go very well together. However, they clearly just found out that they're having a trios match together because they're not in sync whatsoever. The people at AEW own about 45 different wrestling schools, right? There's the Rhodes Academy and the Nightmare Factory and QT Marshall's, Big Apple Training or whatever he calls it, and everybody's got a wrestling school over there. Could you have, gone to one of those schools and tried out some stuff first before you go put it on cable television? Could you maybe have a match or 5 on Dark? Top Flight has tremendous potential, I think. Private Party are stars, I think. I would have given Private Party the tag team titles a long time ago. I don't know for how long, but they would have had it at least. This match looked bad. It made everybody look green, Top Flight especially, because everybody was just too fast forwarded and nobody was in sync with each other, their own partners included. It was rough to watch, and it was saddening because, outside of Matt Jackson, really, I want to like everybody involved here. So that was rough to watch, but at least this wasn't as rough to watch as Cody Rhodes being unable to finish a match in a reasonable amount of time against these never-ending list of jobbers that he's always fighting. Cody Rhodes clearly has a mission of trying to put over everybody, except he's putting himself under everybody instead, right? The Darby Allin thing that people use as a counter argument, that went a whole year. Like, that went ridiculously long, and I don't think Darby's over because he had a year-long on and very off thing with Cody, right? He just happened to get the title from him, and it felt more happenstance than a payoff to a long thing. I think Brian Cage has done infinitely more for Darby Allin than Cody Rhodes has. Cody Rhodes had this epic battle with Warhorse, and he's had his match with Matt Sydal now, and he had his match with Scorpio Sky before Scorpio Sky disappeared off of Dynamite. And who else has Cody fought? Lee Johnson, who's not doing anything. He's fought Eddie Kingston, right? I think that's probably the best Cody match, right? They got Eddie Kingston a job, and then he put over, quote unquote, Brody Lee. But did he really put over Brody Lee? Because Brody Lee was kind of acclaimed on his way into AEW in the first place. Very much everyone looked forward to Brody Lee coming to AEW in the first place, and then they gave him the gimmick as the leader of the Dark Order. So everybody was super excited that it was going to save how bad the Dark Order was, and he did, and he made it awesome. And the fact that he's twice Cody's size, so yeah, he should squash Cody. Hasn't really done anything useful in AEW in the 2 years that he's been there. Everything's just kind of been like, or happenstance, or bad. And this is bad. You have Peter Avalon, who's another person who does not have any business having a contract in AEW. When AEW started, sure, you needed people for the roster. You needed jobbers who were going to get beat. And Peter Avalon filled that role. He went 0 for a million or whatever it was because he was losing to everybody. Rightfully so. He was also losing to everybody on Dark, that 2.5 hour show that you have to get people trained and ready and all their works, all their kinks worked out before they go to Dynamite, right? Since then, you've signed everybody to AEW, right? Everybody's showing up on AEW now, from MLW, from NWA, from Japan, from people Vince let go. You have more and more people on this roster. Less and less time need to go to people like Peter Avalon. I don't know who he's friends with, but he's really bad. He's not charismatic. He's not athletic. He doesn't have a good build. He doesn't have any of the things that makes pro wrestlers, right? He just does a couple of moves or something. He's an interesting looking finisher. I'll give him that. The Librarian thing was always awful. Pretty Peter Avalon might be worse. It's not worse, but it's almost as bad. It's like I had to give myself a theme of, it's Pretty Peter Avalon versus the man who used to be Dashing Cody Rhodes, as the only reason to make sense of this match happening on Dynamite to myself. It didn't belong on Dynamite. It barely belongs on Dark. Cody is much better than this. Peter Avalon doesn't belong here. And it also reminded me of how outrageous it is that we don't get squash matches on Dynamite. Ever. We never get them. There's been like 2 in the 2 years ever on Dynamite. Like, where are the squash matches? You almost had it. Cody hit the crossroads on Peter Avalon. He's done, rightfully so. Jade Cargill comes out to the entranceway. Cody's just staring at this Amazonian woman, right? That I think the plot twist is that Cody's got a thing for Jade Cargill. I think that's a plot twist. It should be the plot twist anyway. But he's just staring at Jade Cargill. A, pin your opponent and then stare. Or B, stare and then go pin Peter Avalon, who's still laid out and unconscious from your crossroads. But no, you turn back and now Peter Avalon is getting offense against former TNT champion and perennially top 5 for the world title ranked Cody Rhodes, even though he can't ever compete for that title again, which was such a dumb decision. And now we have a competitive match. You're not building. You shouldn't have a reason to build Peter Avalon up. You've got too many people on Dynamite that aren't always on Dynamite. Like, you have people go every other week or every 3 weeks before they get a match on Dynamite. Notable call-outs this week. FTR did not have a match. Jungle Boy did not have a match. Britt Baker was not on the show whatsoever. Aforementioned Scorpio Sky. So many talented members of your roster that don't get used a lot. And we're putting Peter Avalon on the show, and we're taking up multiple segments for this match. This is horrible. I'm assuming he won a card game or something, because there's no justification for what this was and where this was whatsoever. And then we get to the main event. The only I'm using good loosely, but the only good in-ring thing the whole night. Everything that's been good was backstage segments, like the Young Bucks at Kenny Omega's house, Eddie Kingston having a promo, the FTR and Jungle Boy promo. That was backstage as well somewhere. MJF further trying to split up the inner circle. All of those things were outside the ring, right? Inside the ring, the only good match you have was the Inner Circle Triple Threat Tag match. And that's despite the fact that Jericho almost seriously hurt himself going for a lion salt he had no momentum on whatsoever. Jericho, I'm not going to say Jericho needs to hang it up and stop wrestling, because I don't think that. But I do think he needs to retire that lion salt, or 50 pounds, one of the two. One of them's got to go, the lion salt or 50 pounds. And I don't think he's losing the 50 pounds, so the lion salt's got to go. It's over. The match did a lot of good, right? You saw that the best team is Santana and Ortiz because, well, they're the only team in that group. For the first time in I don't know how many months, Jake Hager didn't look like a blithering idiot, where he caught MJF and Chris Jericho trying to cheat, and he dominated them briefly. Sammy Guevara continues to look like a star in every match that he's ever in. Hey, Cody, there's a guy who can wrestle multiple segments on a show if you need an opponent to go multiple segments. You had a lot of good here, and then the obvious choice of Jericho and MJF winning the match as the de facto tag team of the Inner Circle, which I'm assuming means that they're going to be the only tag team in that tag team battle royal that they're going to have next week to determine was it the number one contenders or just the next challengers for the tag team titles? Because, we only have a whole ranking system, so that makes sense that we're going to do that. That was all right. But there's just so much bad that encompassed this show. And that's not even mentioning the fact that we give away Sting's reasoning for being on the show, where he's going to congratulate Darby Allin. Instead of just saying Sting has something to say, Sting's going to congratulate Darby Allin on that title win he won 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks ago. How long has it been? It's been forever. We're giving away the reason why he's out there. We're out there for 45 seconds, maybe. Team Taz comes out because Team Taz always comes out whenever Darby or Sting are around. So we have another segment where all 6 of these guys just wasting time, not really getting much accomplished. There's a challenge issued for tag team street fight. And then we get Sting kind of whispering to Darby, and then Darby doesn't even get a cliche line right? The line is, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. He goes, be careful what you wish for, it just might happen. And I know there's a nitpicking, but I'm assuming Sting had to tell you what that line was in the first place, so either you messed it up after Sting told you the line, or Sting messed it up in the first place and then you just ran with it. And then we didn't even get a confirmation that the challenge was accepted, because you said might. You didn't say it's on. You said it might happen. We didn't get the confirmation until after the show was over that we're gonna have this tag match at the pay-per-view. It's why? What are we doing? What are we doing, people? I know I and many other people aren't bookers of professional wrestling, but it's not that hard to do much better than whatever this was for an episode of Dynamite. I think you could have had a fan contest and anybody else could have booked this show better. Even if you told them every match has to be the same. Or everyone that showed up on camera has to show up on camera in some capacity. This could have been done infinitely better by absolutely anybody. This was wretched of a show. I can rant about that show alone for hours, but I'm not going to, mostly because it's a long video already anyway, and I know I don't want to hear an hour plus long episode on YouTube, so I'll cut it there. But I'd love to get some feedback. I guess follow the Twitter at MyBatteryIsDying, but without the G at the end. MyBatteryIsDying. I've been getting some followers there. A lot of you have been direct messaging me on there, so thank you for that. Give me a follow on there if you haven't already. I got recently followed by Fight TV, so that's cool. Simon Miller likes a bunch of the things I post, from time to time, so that's cool. But give me a follow on there. Obviously, like and subscribe to this channel if you care about my channel at all, and comment down below. I keep saying it, nobody ever does it, but comment down below on this video. Give me some feedback. Let me know what your thoughts are on this week of professional wrestling, what you would have done differently, what you would have ranked differently, or in a public forum, how much you disagree with me, because I do get the disagreements privately. Let's see them publicly. Either way though, until next time, I'm Cole Marcus Cash. These were my weekend rants, and I'll see you next time.